attachment and aversion, because aversion is a flip side of attachment. And we can develop transcendental realization for Krishna. Now the word mother, as you persons from India and similar Asian countries, mata, so mother, mata, is intended to generate a mood of respect and sobriety. It's reserved, it's respectful. It was a conversation between His Grace Brahmananda Prabhu, who was one of the very first disciples of Srila Prabhupada back in 1966. So he asked, you say like Mother Rukmini? There's a devotee named Rukmini. So do you say Mother Rukmini? How do you address a woman? You say Mother and then the name of the devotee? Prabhupada said, no, Mother, simply Mother, that's all. And if the woman treats a man as her son, then it is all right, it's safe, simply Mother. Keep that in mind when you make formal introductions, you know, just so-and-so Devi, but in conversation, fine, you know, but a formal introduction, Mother is not part of her name, and you don't combine the two. This is Prabhupada. So first step is Datri. That's the one who actually offered the first mother and the first step, Datri, carries the baby in the womb. There was a comment that the surrogate child doesn't get the chance of being in her own mother's womb. It's a different experience for that baby. But secondly, mother's Janani means actually gives birth, not aborts. Thirdly, she's called Amba. She's not a babysitter. The modern mother is largely driven by convenience. Instead of being allowing oneself to take care of the baby, to be nourished, the personal nourishment of mother is totally different than a caretaker. So as wealth is increasing, many modern kids miss out on the mother's nourishment. This means the natural setting of life that allows the baby to experience complete nourishment, love from the mother's touch, her breast milk, food prepared by her, affection, nourishment through beautiful stories of life that the mother will tell the child. All of that is happening by caretakers in large part nowadays. And another important part of motherhood is called virashi. It means one who raises a child to be heroic and valorous. Doesn't mean they become warriors, but they have the spirit of warriors in whatever they do. Spirit of accomplishment. So therefore the mother doesn't stop them based on her feelings and opinions for what she wants her child to be, but facilitates the child's growth according to the child's nature. Sometimes the child may have to risk their life or everything they have to grow and contribute to a higher purpose. And the mother's proud of them for that. Just like sometimes when the children become Hare Krishnas. I'll just tell quite a story here about one devotee from Ghana. Very poor country in West Africa. And education, especially at that time, was very scarce, any kind of education. And it contributed to the lack of economic development, just for basic needs even. So there was this one family there had several family members, and the family members all had their own kids. So they got together, just like you all have joint families, or at least you used to in the Indian system. So they got together and they discussed which one of these kids is most likely to achieve something in life that would in turn help the greater family members. So they choose this one boy, and they pooled their resources to send him to school to get primary, secondary education, and college. And they didn't make a mistake. He was quite good, you know. So in college, second year, and they already chose his profession. do that in a moment. So he's in college, and what do you think happened? He was walking by the train station. He sees somebody in some kind of orangish clothes sitting out on the sidewalk. Many people are sitting on the sidewalk, they sell stuff. And this person has some books. He's a student, he likes to read. He goes, oh, what is this? Kind of books I never saw before, but he picked up one that was pretty interesting. And paid the person, and he read the book, and he thought, this is really interesting. And of course, I think you all know what kind of book it was. So he goes back the next week to find this person when he wants to see you guys in more books. And he couldn't find the person, so he's asking the other so well, this person was here. You know, he says, yeah, sometimes he's here, sometimes he's not. You know. But they have a place, they have a meeting place, and they told him where, and he went there. It was a Hare Krishna temple. And he started going. He even started distributing books on his days off from college, you know, like a holiday or something. So there was this one holiday, and he got to the temple early in the morning. He's going to spend the weekend there. So he gets there, and the devotee said, oh, God, you're here. Great. Get in the van. We're going to Ghana. It's a neighbor. We're going to Nigeria. It's a neighbor country. There's this person, and you just have to meet him. He's a really elevated person. And, you know, he just jumps in the van. Now, let me tell you, the roads in these countries are, you're lucky if there's any pavement at all. Mostly they're just potholes. You know, they're really uncomfortable riding roads. So and they're going to drive all night. This was like Friday night. Then I get there. Now, if this had been an American road, they would have probably been there, like maybe going from here to Cleveland or something, you know. But it's, you know, like Ghana, Nigeria, it's like boom, 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 boom. And so like overnight, they get there, there's this little building, there's a little light on, and you see some people in there, and he goes in, and they're just totally dancing and dancing. And there's this one person, and he's like just magnetically attracting everybody by his demeanor, by his dancing, by his aura. And that was Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. It was worth the trip. So Maharaj was told about this person. He asked him to come to meet me. He goes, so you're a student? Yes. At that time he had the, you know, the hair. So you're a student? Yes. And he goes, what do you study? I'm going to be a doctor. And he looked at him very intensely. There are so many doctors in the world. Has anybody cured birth, death, disease, and old age? It was like, no. Therefore, we need doctors of the soul. We need soul doctors. So it was a little, he wasn't expecting that, and it was kind of, you know, like on this. So he's leaving the darshan, and all the devotees are, wait, what did he say? What did he say? I think he's asking me to join and be a soul doctor. What are you going to do? I think I'm going to be a soul doctor. And whack out came some scissors and razors, and before I knew what was happening, he shaved him up. And you can imagine the family being devastated by this. Here's their hope for some kind of secure economic in the future was just vanished. On his father's deathbed, on the deathbed of his father, this person, Srila Prabhupada, he went there to see his father, and his father looked up and he said, he took his hand, he goes, son, as I know on my deathbed, I now understand why you did what you did, and I want you to know I'm proud of you. So he got where he was because he had a loving, caring mother who allowed him to go the way of his heart. Another mother in Shastra is Devaki. She was mentioned in the verse I read. She's the exalted mother, the real mother, as it's explained, of Lord Krishna. However, her motherhood was cut short by the circumstance of her in prison. Can you sit over here because I'm like, I won't do it, you know, but I keep having to jam my neck here. Thank you so much. If the room had been full, I would have asked to be over there, but since we're just a little few of us, let's just make it easier. So by being imprisoned by Kamsa, her motherhood was cut short. Therefore, she didn't get to suckle her son. She didn't get to engage in loving motherhood pastimes with him. She didn't get to observe his playful childhood behaviors, nor did she get to lovingly chastise him. So, as his foster mother Yasoda, she got to do all of that. And by the way, Devaki was not in the least bit envious. Definitely. But Devaki is the most exalted for her incredible selfless service that brought Lord Krishna forth into this world, allowing his extraordinary pastimes to unfold. So how did this occur? Devaki knew that the eighth child, remember after the marriage, they're trotting along on the chariot, and the voice from the sky, Kamsa, you fool! The eighth child is going to kill you. So she also knew the eighth child was destined to kill Kamsa, who was just such a treacherous, horrible person. So therefore, she humbly tolerated the brutal killings by Kamsa of each one of her newborn children. I mean, how many of you would be willing to have child after child if you knew it was going to be killed right in front of your face? She humbly took this as her service, hastened the Lord's appearance for the greater purpose of serving humanity. So her humility is without compare. Another wonderful mother, we all know, I think, Kunti Devi. Kunti Devi is a personification of motherhood. Her motherhood wasn't defined just by her loving nature, but her ability to help her children find their own true nature and allow them to act accordingly. The Kunti Devi, she raised them to be active participants in life's real battling situations and always keep the dharmic foundation alive. And we know in the Bhagavatam in the first canto, 8th chapter, it's known for these exalted prayers of Queen Kunti. In fact, when Srila Prabhupada was suffering from a stroke in 65, and the devotees, out of desperation, took him to a hospital. Srila Prabhupada had Brahmananda read these prayers of Queen Kunti. Now, at that point, sorry, I said 65, wrong year. At this point, devotees were just so new. The Sanskrit was just like practically unable to even, the transliteration, English was hard to adjust to. Didn't care. He wanted Brahmana to read the full Sanskrit, the translation to purport. He didn't spend time on these things just to fill up the page. It was for us. And just even then, so Brahmananda was reading, and he would say, okay, again. So important, these prayers. So mostly people hear about, let these calamities happen time and time again. That's what somehow sticks in people's mind. Please read the whole story, everything. But one is the Vishesham Hishpakma Vishpamurti Sekeshune Snehatasami Mamchindi Durinam Pandushu Vishnishu. So this is 41. 41 and 42 are very insightful. This one, O Lord of the universe, O soul of the universe, O personality and the form of the universe, please therefore sever my ties of affection for my kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. Think of that. These are her family members that cut off these ties of affection. You're expecting a child, right? Are you ready to pray like that? A pure devotee, but the Prabhupada explains it. A pure devotee is ashamed to ask anything in self-interest from the Lord. But householders are sent. It's time for Gayatri. We'll have to do that later. So householders are sometimes obliged to ask favors of the Lord, being bound by the ties of family affection. Queen Malati Devi was conscious of this fact, and therefore she prayed to the Lord, cut these ties of affection from her own kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis, who were on opposite sides. If I go this way, if I go this way, it was perplexing. So, cut off. What does this mean, to cut the ties of family affection? What does it really mean? We're not stones. Kunti wasn't a stone. Affection is naturally there, especially for devotees. We're not hard-hearted. We may be hard-hearted out of material and confusion, but we're not hard-hearted. We don't hate our families. Devotees don't hate anyone. So cutting the limited ties of affection, family affection, limited ties widens and broadens the activities of devotional service for the forgotten souls. So the meaning to cut off all family affection means to broaden one's fields of activities. Can you think of somebody who did that? Srila Prabhupada. His wife was reluctant to assist. In fact, she was adverse to assist. And in his own words, therefore, I had to leave him. Of course, his children were of age, but we wouldn't be sitting here, if he didn't broaden his field of activities. Another wonderful mother, also you can read about her in the earlier part of the 8th chapter, Uttara. She was the daughter of a great king, the wife of a great hero, the student of a great devotee, and later the mother of a great king, Maharaj Pariksit. This beautiful prayer was 8189. Pahi Pahi Mahayogam Deva Deva Jagat Pate Nanyam Taryam Pashe Yatra Ritu Parasparam. So, translation. O Lord of Lords, Lord of the universe, you are the greatest mystic. Please protect me, for there is no one else who can save me from the clutches of death in this world of duality. I'll just read the next verse to English. Oh my Lord, you are all-powerful. A fiery arrow is coming towards me fast. My Lord, let it burn me personally if you so desire, but please do not let it abort my embryo. Please do me this favor, my Lord. So we just read how somehow, sometimes the household is not ashamed to ask. So here's the situation here. But they're not asking for themselves. They're not asking for mundane material aggrandizement. That's allowed to ask. But the higher principle for a devotee is to ask for something that will help you become a better devotee. So the incident here with Uttara took place after the death of Abhimanyu, her husband. And that left Uttara widowed at a very young age because she was pregnant at the time with Maharaj Pariksit. She was responsible for his protection. So she was not ashamed to express this frankly to Krishna. Please protect my embryo. Her husband, who was equally young, like 16 years old, really young. Her husband was son of Subhadra and Arjuna. He was ruthlessly killed during the battle of Kurukshetra. A brahmastra is a very fine weapon, much finer than nuclear. Like in a nuclear weapon, everything is finished. Innocent, innocent, and enemy, friend, doesn't matter, you're gone. The brahmastra, it would just go to the directed target. It would not harm anything else. So this Ashwatthama had discharged the brahmastra. He wanted to kill all the Pandavas. The 5 brothers headed by Maharaj Yudhishthira and his grandson, who was in the womb of Uttara. So Uttara's womb was struck by the brahmastra, and Maharaj Pariksit in the womb, he was was actually feeling the burning heat. But because he was a devotee, the Lord at once appeared within the womb by his all-powerful energy. And the child within the womb saw that someone had come to save him. It's described that the Lord, in just size suitable, but still, that he could, the child in the womb, so, small, but still, he had 4 hands. He had earrings like molten gold, his eyes were blood red with fury, and he was moving about the club constantly encircling, just like a shooting star. What this is going on in the womb. In the Gita 9:31, the Lord assures everyone his devotees are never going to be vanquished. No one can kill a devotee of the Lord, because why? He's protected by the Lord. No one can save a person who the Lord desires to kill. The Lord is so powerful, all-powerful. He can both ways. He can save or kill as he likes. So he became visible to his devotee Maharaj Parikshit in the womb of his mother. And there's no difference between the thumb-like Vishnu in the womb of Uttara and the full-fledged Narayan in the Vaikuntha Dham. Krishna responded to her helpless pleas. And another mother, Draupadi, common wife of the 5 Pandavas, through an extraordinary circumstance which time does not permit me to detail. Another mother, Sanchimata. Now we're moving a little forward in time. The exalted mother of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was revered by Advaita Acharya during her pregnancy. First of all, her pregnancy was a result of the cries of Advaita Acharya. And now, here was Sachimata, and it was described that she was like glowing. And Advaita Acharya one time came to the home of Sachimata and Jagannath Mishra, and he saw Sachimata, he started to circumambulate her, and she was like, "What's going on? What are you doing? Stop it." She was saying, he made obeisances and left. When her dear husband, her eldest son, at the age of 12, became a mendicant, sannyasa. And then her dear husband, Jagannath Mishra, departed, and Nimai now taking sannyas, and she was just left crying in separation. Another exalted mother from this era was Malati Devi, the wife of Nityananda Prabhu. And after Nityananda Prabhu's departure, she was the leader of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. She was the exalted spiritual leader of all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And she personally cooked and served each guest during the first Gur Purnima festival in Keturi, in West Bengal. Anybody had a problem, they came to Janana, and they would listen, and whatever her advice, they would accept. We fast forward to more recent times. Malati Devi, dasi, the first lady, first woman initiated by Srila Prabhupada in his first initiation in 1966, Janmashtami in New York City. Just turn that all the way off. So, anybody who has to do Gayatri, we can do it after. I'll do it after too. So, she was affectionately referred to by Srila Prabhupada as his naughty daughter. They had a very unique relationship that had no tinge of awe and reverence. She just loved him. She would even chastise him. Swamiji. I could do a whole class on Janaki, but we have to move along. Her sister was Yamuna Devi, who's more well known. Yamuna was reflecting Srila Prabhupada's presence in Vani and Vapu. or our ability to perceive his presence in his Vani or Vapu depends on our consciousness, whether we are able to perceive a drop of who Prabhupada was. Some devotees did not have Srila Prabhupada's personal company or darshan, but by their volume, by their greed for it, they had more than many of us who actually did spend time with him. It all depends on consciousness. Srila continued, I still have no idea the greatness of Srila Prabhupada's presence then or now, although I think about it a lot. I meditate on it a lot. We discuss it almost every day. It comes up in some form or other in our morning Bhagavatam class. Prabhupada's presence then and now, Vani and Vapu. It is very important to hold on to his presence as the focal point of our maturing in spiritual life, because for us in ISKCON, he is the center of our spiritual life. Nothing came here, nothing comes without his presence. Even if the mercy comes to us through other forms, from endless different places or endless devotees, still, he is the fountainhead. Our current spiritual masters are successful due to their strict adherence to the teachings of Srila Prabhupada, how they pass it on, how they teach us. That's how they're successful. So if we're qualified, then certain mercies will come to us. Mercy is not something you bargain for or arrange or even desire for very deeply. You can have intense hankering, and then whatever comes, whatever form that mercy comes, it will be very Krishna conscious and it will be received as such. So every moment of every day for Jamuna is a constant meditation on Srila Prabhupada. She related that one day Prabhupada came into his room and they service, personal service, myself, Janaki, other ladies at the time. So we did that kind of service for him. So the room had just been taken care of, the bed was made, cleaned up. And he commented, this is very unusual, meaning for a sannyasi to have women do this type of service. It's very unusual, but it is appropriate. Because sometimes I'm like your father, and you are like my daughters, and sometimes you are like my mothers, and I am like your son. Yeah. So Jamuna had mentioned that she felt ready to leave, to go. She felt she had done what she was meant to do in this life, or what she could do, but she had no fears, she had no regrets. One devotee was thinking, was actually Guru Swami, that she should write about her experiences and realizations of Srila Prabhupada, but her reply was, no, I've thought this over, and there's nothing really I have to say. If there's anything, if I'm given more time, it's to try to help the women of this movement. She told him, I don't think as a sannyasi you can understand what women experience in the movement, but if Krishna does give me more time, I would like to do something for the women, to support the women, and give a strong voice. Hare Krishna to the women. So at 6:30 in the morning on December 20th, 2011, Jamuna's constant companion and spiritual confidant, Dinatarani Dasi, found that Jamuna had left her body. Her hand was in her bead bag. There was a slight smile on her face. As Mondakini Devi Dasi, our dear god sister, said, she was French, Venore prie avec sa main dans le sac. It's a French saying. A thief, you can detect the thief, his hands in the bag. But in this case, our dear Lord Krishna caught her with her hand in the bead bag and stole her away. Jamuna was a beautiful soul, a divine servant of Srila Prabhupada and his mission and his Lord's. She exemplified Namaruchi, taste for the holy name, not just get those 16 rounds. She had a taste for chanting. right from the beginning actually. Jivandoy, mercy for the living entities. The Vaishnava Seva, service to the devotees. She was a mentor, a guide, and a friend to many. She was a perfect mother. And the final example, well, almost. How many here in this room have heard of Malati Devi dasi from Vrindavan?
Is it the same devotee who went to Africa?
Yes, so Malati Devi dasi was an avid servant of Lord Jagannath, and she was martyred for her fearless preaching in Liberia. She was shot and killed defending others, and her body was thrown into a river. She was born in January of '69 and named Linda by her parents, but she received the name Vladini from her beloved spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. In 1969, she married Mike Ryan, and she wasn't yet initiated. And like many young people, she and her husband, they were searching for truth and a sense of fulfillment. And Mike read a book entitled The Wisdom of God by Srila Prabhupada. And he heard the devotees chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. And he tasted the free vegetarian prasadam. And he became convinced that he belonged with these people, these devotees. So they both moved into the Detroit temple in March of '70. And that's when she wrote to Srila Prabhupada requesting spiritual initiation. So he immediately replied. He gave her the name Malati Devi dasi. And in 1972, they moved to New Vrindavan. Somehow later in that year, Mike left New Vrindavan permanently, but Vladimir chose to stay. She couldn't leave Lord Jagannath. And she became one of the most beloved, respected devotees in New Vrindavan due to her mood of pure service and behavior. And then in December of 1990, after 18 years of service, she made a painful decision to leave New Vrindavan, and she traveled all the way to West Africa. And the devotees there loved her. They appreciated her service and inspiration, and she was appointed regional secretary to assist Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami, who was their overseer. So in this capacity, accompanied by her Gaura-Nitai deities, Vladini would travel from center to center, often in boats, on a bus, by foot, teaching and assisting the devotees. By the time she reached Monrovia, the capital of Liberia, this country was involved in a fratricidal civil conflict, like the mini battle of Kurukshetra. God, I never know what this stuff. In the battle of Kurukshetra, you had two families. Here there was like warlords. There were 7 and they were all fighting with each other for control and power. And the result was widespread starvation among the people. So seeing the suffering of the people, the Hare Krishna devotees from the little temple in Monrovia, they approached these warlords and they said, we can help, we can do something. We're not taking sides, your people are starving, we can help. And they started a Food for Life program. So the warlord that was controlling Monrovia, his name was Prince Johnson. He gave himself the title Prince. Self-titled. He agreed to the proposal, so they began this program. Then after this Prince Johnson, he actually visited the temple a couple times, and he took a Bhagavad Gita, which I doubt that he read. And as the war was intensifying, the U.S. government ordered all U.S. citizens to evacuate. So now Houdini had to make a critical decision. Should I stay here with the devotees, or should I go? Return to safety. And true to her nature, true to her compassionate heart, her motherly compassion and mercy for others outweighed any concern for her own safety. So she opted to stay. And she was the only senior devotee in Monrovia, and her presence gave solace to the native Africans who could not leave. So now, this Prince Johnson, he was just killing anybody and everybody who suspected of, having any ties that were not of ties of allegiance to him. He even killed his own men. it said he killed them at a faster rate than the enemy. So his reputation for an insane murderer bothered the devotees, so they wrote him a letter. And they were trying to, advise him, this isn't so good for you, killing all these people. They were trying to give him some compassionate common sense. Just please stop killing all these people, but it just angered him. He could not tolerate anything that he perceived to be criticism. So a well-wisher passed the message to the devotees that this Johnson was likely going to get rid of them. But it was too late to go anywhere. So they remained in the temple. And on October, it was a Sunday, October 3rd, 1990, the death squad arrived at the Hare Krishna temple in the capital city of Monrovia, early morning of the hours, and they ordered the devotees come out. 7 devotees, 5 men, 2 ladies. 2 other devotees escaped, and they went up in trees. So 5 came out, and they were forced at rifle point into the waiting jeep. They were driven a short distance to this Sturton Bridge. It was a river. And were forced out again and just stand in the sand next to the river, in a line next to the river. And the leader announced, only the men will be killed. So the lady at that point knew she would not be killed. As the leader raised his weapon to fire, he leapt forward and with her bare hands attacked. She shouted, how dare you kill the devotees of Krishna? Better you kill me than them. And thus she was the first one shot. But her death, no matter how heartbreaking it was also glorious. A glorious mother.
Yeah.
She never had her own physical children. She was the mother to everyone. Our Ohio mothers. I can't name everybody, there's so many, but I'll name 2. The late Krishnanandini Devi Dasi. And her Grace Kamagiri Devi Dasi. Both of whose presence glorify our yatras due to their lovingly exemplary status as mothers. In February 20th of 1969, a letter was written by Srila Prabhupada. My dear little mothers, Yamuna, Malati, and Janaki, please accept my blessings. I lost my mother when I was only 14 years of age, so I didn't get much of my mother's affection in my childhood. But in my old age, Krishna has given me so many young mothers to take care of me.
Yeah.
Another mother is Govinda Dasi there in Hawaii. She's always asking me to go there, so I will go there within this month. Our lives were filled with his affection. He also gave instruction to Raya Rama on October 4th, 67 by letter. Please guide our innocent God sisters, ladies, who have come to take our shelter. Then he named Vinodini, Jadharani, and all the other girls who are so qualified, so good-looking, intelligent, educated, and seriously engaged in Krishna consciousness. They should be given always protection. And he explained that protection. Given protection from the attachments of Maya. So Srila Prabhupada was our glorious well-wisher, and from him, through him, we could understand how beautiful motherhood is and how we should always honor the ladies and the mothers of our movement. Srila Prabhupada keeps on. I usually end up going to the arti. I was going so fast that I think the arti's at 12:30, right?
Yeah.
So we've got a little time if anybody has some questions, or if you have some examples, there's so many examples, I would just pick out a few. If anybody wants to offer some further additional commentaries or examples.
there's a drama of the ISKCON Chowpatty actually. They
Yeah.
actually did on Malati Devi.
Yes,
It's a wonderful drama.
yes.
So,
That was
yeah.
such an extraordinary devotee.
Yes.
You know. Able.
Hare Krishna.
Go with that.
Thank you very much. Very nice presentation.
Do we have is there a microphone to?
Yeah. There's a microphone.
Mother Ladini,
Turn it on.
Hare Krishna.
Turn it on.
Just speak loud.
Yeah.
Use your best Kirtan voice.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, there you go.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, Mother Ladino was in Ghana. Personally, I traveled with her. She was in our Sankirtan party.
Did she land first in Ghana? Or
Yes,
okay.
yes. Actually, I think she came to Ghana twice. And so each time she came, she did a very marvelous preaching. And, I was part of the Sankirtan team. So we traveled to every town and village in Ghana,
Literally.
remote part of Ghana villages. And she always carried her body tie, dancing and...
And they were like about this tall.
Yeah, at this time. And the children always come and surround her. And she would ask them to chant Hare Krishna. And she was such an amazing devotee. Very amazing devotee. Now, my question is that this devotees executed, can we say was Krishna's arrangement for these devotees to come back to him at that time? Because Krishna could have protected the situation. So what do you have to say about it?
Well, sometimes we don't have the ability to understand what's happening. We see it from one aspect, according to what our understanding, our consciousness is, how developed we are. So, I mean, sometimes when something happens to a devotee and we don't like it, we actually even get angry at Krishna. That happens. Right? Like you lost your mother at a young age, you could have been really upset with Krishna, isn't it? And maybe you were.
Yeah.
You're right. But ultimately we have to come to the understanding of when Krishna's in control, it doesn't mean he's going to save you like you think you want to be saved. There's always a higher destination and principle involved. And here, from the aspect, because we're living in the material world, that's a fact. Our little temple here is outside of the material world, so long as we act appropriately and keep within the guidelines of devotional service. It's like this is another planet in here. But even sometimes within our little specially protected planet, we've suffered grief and loss. And find it difficult to understand Krishna's hand in the picture. So I think that's what your question is.
Yes.
So we cannot maybe precisely say what detail, but we can understand that Krishna is calling his devotee. He sent the devotee, now he's calling the devotee back. What about all these other devotees? Well, they have been left with the, nowadays people, the tools. I don't know this expression, how you can apply tools to devotional service. You've been left with the knowledge of Bhakti Yoga. You've been left with the knowledge of devotional service. Everyone. And in particular, we have been left with knowledge of the potency of the holy name. So whatever our circumstance, however beautiful it may appear, however hellish it may appear, we have been left with the pure protection of the holy name. Just recently, there was a passage, actually there were two in a row up in Michigan. Two devotees, mothers, 42 years old, children aged 9 and 11, one after the other, 1 and 2. just got initiated. I mean, she'd been trying for years, but due to the physical condition, she wasn't able to be present during initiations. And now finally, at the last minute, she got initiated. And not even a month later, that was on the 7th, the initiation. So 30 days out, January 1st, 20 minutes into the new year, she breathed her last.
Mm.
She looked extraordinarily beautiful. Her husband was there, her young children were there. How could this be a wonderful moment? And yet it was the most glorious moment. Because at that last moment, after months and years of trying, she let go because she knew she couldn't do anything. It was up to Krishna, one way or the other. She knew she was on her deathbed. And instead of trying to figure out some consolation to the family members, she consoled them by her beautiful departure. Yeah. The other one, which was a little bit sooner, was in October, same thing. She was trying, sometimes she would ask me, am I doing the right thing for trying to preserve my life? What should I do? I said, I cannot tell you. But one thing you might want to consider, if just being alive is the most you can do, but not being able to really be active, just being hooked up to machines and breathing, is that the life, and is that how you want your children to remember you? That you have to decide what you need to do. And things came to the point where it was very clear what had to be done. It's meant to disconnect. And again, the devotees were there chanting like anything. Her family was there, her children were there. And somehow I couldn't get there in time because the information came so quick that if I had tried to travel up to Michigan, I wouldn't have made it. So I was on Zoom. They made some arrangement. And I managed to get her guru, Radha Swami, Rabbi Eva. So we're all there chanting. And suddenly, she looked up and she saw Maharaj on the Zoom screen. And she just, let go of anything out. And she became like this shimmering, effulgent being and left her body. I had called my friend Kishore because they had done service together. So she was also watching this. And I said, did you see that? Because it was so misty, and everybody could see that. Her children could see it. Of course there was my mother, but it was so beautiful. But there, at the same time, there was pain, there was solace. Krishna doesn't desert his devotee. We just don't understand the bigger picture at times. And naturally, when the great soul leaves, whether it's your mother, your guru, or somebody else, your father, naturally our hearts aren't stone. There's going to be emotion, there's going to be feeling. It's going to be that loss. And at the same time, we know they're just fine. We're left behind in the dust to chase after them. Think of Mother Krishna. So that's the best way I can answer your question.
Okay, thank you. My last question is it's kind of continuation to the same.
Hare Krishna. Alright, it is said that when Lord Brahma is living, when Lord Brahma days end, then all the people in Brahmaloka will go along with Lord Brahma to back to God. We always talk about devotees association and how important to have an association of devotees.
And that's clarified also, this devotee association
Yes.
in 3:25:25, devotees sadhusanga, association of devotees, but particularly those devotees who are active
Yeah.
in their devotional service.
Yeah. So a situation where a personality like Mother Nandini leaving her body along with
Krishna Nandini.
yeah, leaving her body with other devotees. You know for sure that she will go back to God. And can we say that, for her loving compassion to these devotees, she decided not to stay for them to die, but rather she would die and save them. And then instead, all of them were executed. So if she is going back to God, can we say that she will take everybody along, even though it doesn't qualify?
I wouldn't be that presumptuous. I mean, with only a spouse, we don't know. Even Srila Prabhupada didn't be, like when Jayananda, who was extremely dear to Srila Prabhupada, left his body. He wrote him this beautiful letter. It was post after the departure. And he was saying, I'm not, if you were fully purified of any type of desire, you would go back to Godhead, or at least you can go to, if you have some little desire left, you didn't condemn that, then you can go to a higher elevated, situation, fulfill that desire, and then after that you can go back home. And then he said, but I think due to your devotional nature, you have gone back home. In other words, he was assertive without being like that. So I've always taken that as my guideline. There's sometimes, we feel strong, my God, this person is certainly gone. And certainly we hope so when they're in a compromised situation. But as far as being able to say with absolutely definitely, I don't know that that's our ability, but certainly we hope so, and it looks that way. And whether or not they're taking others with them, I also cannot say that either, because each person, each individual has to fly their own plane. Well, I'm going to let Krishna Nandini take me back home. She can definitely assist by her teachings that she left behind. But her teachings are connected to Prabhupada, so either way, you've got what you need. You know what to do at the moment of death. And you may not know in that moment of death. We may not know it. Every time I get in my car to drive to Columbus or anywhere else, I'm like, am I even going to make it there? I don't know. So I'm first thing, turn on that ignition and start chanting the Nutrient prayers, hoping that I will remember Krishna on the way, and then I just chant, non-stop, or maybe I'll listen to something. But you don't know. So at each and every moment in our life, whether you're, young ladies or old ladies like me, it's like, okay, it's just around the corner. It's like tapping me on the back. I know it's good. But we have to be prepared. We have to be ready. And one thing is for sure, people like Krishna Nandini, Krishna like Srila Prabhupada Maharaj, people like Vladini, they understood the value of association with devotees. So Vladini was so worried that in her life she may have offended a devotee. And she saw everybody as a devotee, and she didn't want to offend a devotee. She said, I can't think of anything worse than offending a devotee. I can't think of anything worse than being bereft of devotee association. But sometimes, like when you go out to preach, you may be the only quote-unquote so-called devotee. So where is association? Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
So we have to develop a little faith, have to develop a little attachment to chanting, not just moving the beads along. That's the beginning, and we need to do that. But, for example, somebody like Jamuna, she had an attachment. She had what we call a taste for chanting the holy name. It was palatable to her. Hare Krishna. Thank you for adding to the class.
Mother Malati Prabhu ki.
Jai.
So devotees, we take out the mats and put it in the corner and we have standing kirtan. Govind Prabhu, please. Be able to lead the kirtan.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki jai. Thank you so much, devotee, for joining on YouTube. Hare Krishna.